Picture this scenario. You're gripping the steering wheel. You are maybe 15 minutes late for work, and traffic is at an absolute standstill.
Oh, and you haven't even had a full cup of coffee yet.
Exactly. Your stress levels are just spiking. But what if I told you that this exact moment of pure daily chaos is actually the secret to achieving English fluency?
I mean, it sounds completely counterintuitive, right? Because we are so conditioned to believe that language learning requires this pristine, undisturbed environment.
Yeah, like you need a quiet library, a fresh notebook, and a solid 2 hours of uninterrupted free time.
Which, let's be honest, absolutely nobody has. I mean, if you're trying to balance a career, a family, or just, the basic demands of keeping your life together, that 2-hour block of free time is a complete myth.
It's totally a myth. The calendar is packed. And that's exactly why today's deep dive is geared specifically toward you, the learner who has zero free time, but still wants to master a language.
Right, because we are examining a comprehensive framework based around a source of more than 150 daily routine phrases. But we aren't just going to recite a list of vocabulary.
No, far from it.
Yeah.
The goal today is to look at the underlying mechanics of habit building. We're going to deconstruct how you can take the unavoidable automatic actions you already do every single day and transform them into built-in language triggers.
You really don't need to find extra time to learn. You just need to piggyback on the time you're already spending.
Piggybacking on existing time. I like that. It changes the entire premise from a time management problem to, well, a psychological strategy.
It totally does.
And if we're looking at daily routines, the most logical place to start isn't with the chaos of the commute, but with the most predictable environment of your entire day, the first few minutes after you wake up.
Yeah, those early morning moments are absolutely crucial for memory retention because your brain is operating in a very specific low-friction state. When we look at the vocabulary for this part of the day in the source material, it's highly sequential. You have the distinction between waking up early, say, hitting that 6 a.m. mark versus waking up late around 9 a.m.
Right, and then the real magic happens in the micro-actions, the immediate physical sequence, like I turn off my alarm.
Followed inevitably by the universal experience of hitting the snooze button, which the text specifically defines as getting that 5 or 10 minutes of extra sleep.
We all do it.
Yeah.
And then I get out of bed and I stretch my arms. But this framework also highlights a specific psychological trigger right out of the gate. I make my bed.
Yes. Framing it not as a household chore, but as a small win to build momentum for the day. That concept of the small win is really the engine of this entire learning strategy.
So how does that actually work in the brain?
Well, let's look at the neuroscience of what's happening when you attach an English phrase to the physical act of making your bed or, turning off an alarm.
Okay, I'm with you.
When you perform an automatic physical action, your brain relies on the basal ganglia, which is the part of the brain that handles habit loops. By actively thinking the phrase, I make my bed, at the exact moment you pull up the sheets.
You force a connection.
Exactly. You force a connection between a highly ingrained physical habit and new neural information.
So wait, if I'm understanding the mechanism here, the physical action essentially acts as a save button for the vocabulary.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. The physical movement is the save button.
Wow.
Because the morning routine is so rigid, it provides a structural scaffolding. You don't have to remember to study because the act of getting out of bed is the cue that triggers the recall of the vocabulary.
I mean, I get the theory, but let's look at this realistically for a second.
Okay, sure.
If my brain is half asleep and I'm just trying to shamble into the bathroom, isn't learning a complex language the absolute last thing my brain wants to do? Does practicing something as basic as the first thing I do is drink a glass of water actually move the needle toward fluency?
It absolutely moves the needle because you aren't trying to absorb complex grammatical rules while half asleep.
Right.
You are building contextual anchors. Take the bathroom routine outlined in this framework. It gets incredibly specific about physical sensations.
Like the phrases for, I brush my teeth.
Yes, and the debate between washing your face with cold water to jolt yourself awake versus taking a warm, relaxing shower.
There's definitely a distinct sensory shock to splashing cold water on your face at 6 in the morning.
And that shock is your greatest asset for memory retention. This is called multisensory association. When you splash cold water on your face, there's a mild spike in adrenaline.
Your nervous system just kind of reacts.
Right. And if, in that exact second of physiological response, you mentally narrate the phrase, I washed my face with cold water, Your amygdala tags that piece of information as significant.
Oh, wow. So you aren't just memorizing a dictionary definition of the word cold.
Exactly. You are physically feeling the concept of cold while generating the English word.
It's like a cognitive Trojan horse. The habit loop is already inside the walls of my daily routine, and I'm just hiding the vocabulary inside the adrenaline spike of a cold shower.
Precisely. You're hijacking your own physiological responses to cement the language. But where this strategy really gets put to the test is when we transition out of that highly controlled, predictable morning environment.
And enter a state of high cognitive load and potential chaos.
Yes.
Which brings us to leaving the house.
Yes.
The framework calls this the leaving the house problem. And honestly, anyone who has ever patted down their pockets in a blind panic looking for their keys, their wallet, or their phone knows exactly what this means.
It's a universal point of friction. When you are panicked about finding your keys, your cortisol levels rise, and your working memory basically shuts down. You really cannot learn in that state.
So how do we apply this language strategy to a moment of pure panic? If I'm frantic trying to get out the door, my brain has zero bandwidth to care about English vocabulary.
Well, you solve it by altering the environment to remove the panic entirely, which then creates a new, reliable trigger for the language.
Okay, what's the solution the source gives?
The specific linguistic and physical solution presented here is to place a small bowl right by the door. You build a new micro-habit around the phrase, "I put away my keys." Every single day, the keys go into that specific bowl.
So you're creating a physical endpoint.
Exactly. And by creating that reliable physical endpoint, you eliminate the frantic searching. This allows you to seamlessly practice the next crucial action phrase.
Which is, I locked the door.
Yes, you've replaced a chaotic, high-stress moment that blocks learning with a calm, controlled physical action that invites learning.
It's essentially using vocabulary as a form of damage control for your daily life, which is brilliant, because once you successfully lock that door, you enter the next major phase of the day.
The commute.
Right. And the framework we're exploring makes a really interesting linguistic distinction here. It points out that commute functions as both a noun and a verb.
It does. You can identify the chunk of time by saying, my commute is 40 minutes, or you can focus on the action saying, I commute by car.
It also delves into the unpredictable nature of that travel, contrasting heavy bumper-to-bumper traffic with light, easy traffic.
Oh, and we have to mention my absolute favorite detail from this section.
The work-from-home routine.
Yes. For some people, the commute is just the 30-second walk from the kitchen to the home office desk. And the source highlights that very modern phenomenon of wearing pajama pants on the bottom, completely out of frame, while wearing a nice professional shirt on the top for video calls.
I mean, it's hilarious, but it's a highly accurate reflection of modern work culture. And it proves that a routine doesn't have to mean a traditional corporate transit.
True. But whether you're sitting in a home office or arriving at a downtown skyscraper, the linguistic reset is the same.
The environment changes, and the vocabulary shifts to match. Like, I turn on my computer, I check my schedule, and the universally dreaded reality of facing so many emails.
So many emails.
But let me challenge the core premise here again. Because whether you're gripping a steering wheel in heavy traffic, or you are staring down a mountain of unread emails the second you turn on your computer.
These are high-stress moments.
Yeah, high-demand moments. Nobody in heavy traffic is safely pulling out a language app or a flashcard. How does someone actually practice in the middle of a freeway?
Okay, this is where we introduce the most powerful tool for the time-starved learner, the internal narrator. The internal narrator. Yeah, you don't need a book, an app, or a study buddy. You just need your own internal monologue. The strategy is to simply think in English.
So just talking to yourself.
Basically, as you sit in that bumper-to-bumper traffic, feeling that frustration, you silently narrate to yourself, I am in heavy traffic. As you open your laptop and see the inbox, you think, I am checking my emails.
So you are turning silent, dead time in your own head into active, engaged practice.
Yes, and more importantly, you are linking the vocabulary to real, immediate emotions. Just like the shock of the cold water in the morning, the frustration of heavy traffic, or the overwhelming feeling of a full inbox are strong emotional states. When you mentally narrate those moments in English, you are bypassing rote memorization entirely. You are teaching your brain to organically associate the English words with real-life context.
That drastically lowers the barrier to entry.
Yeah.
You're removing all the friction of having to find time to study because the studying is happening concurrently with your survival of the morning rush.
It fundamentally changes the relationship you have with your schedule. The schedule is no longer the obstacle to your learning. The schedule is the curriculum.
Okay, so we've survived the morning, we've navigated the heavy traffic, we've tackled the inbox. As the day progresses, we inevitably hit the afternoon.
And this framework correctly identifies this as the domain of the afternoon slump.
Oh yeah, where cognitive energy drops, the caffeine wears off, and eventually the workday gives way to the annoying life maintenance tasks. The language shift here is fascinating because it mirrors that physiological drop in energy. We see a focus on lunch habits specifically. The contrast between the detrimental habit of eating at your desk while staring at a screen versus the restorative habit of physically leaving the workspace for a real break.
Right, and to combat that specific afternoon slump, there's the strategic shift from drinking heavy coffee to brewing green tea for a much gentler, sustained caffeine boost.
And then, mercifully, we get to the phrase, I finish around 5.00, which introduces the concept of social time.
Social time is a critical contextual bucket. It encompasses the small talk with colleagues as you pack up to leave. Phrases like, how was your weekend? It's casual interpersonal vocabulary that requires a totally different tone than an email to your boss.
But the real heavy lifting happens when you finally get home. This is when the chores begin.
The dreaded chores.
Yeah, and there's a really strategic distinction made here that I think trips up a lot of language learners. The difference between errands and groceries.
It is a really common point of confusion, but separating them is actually a brilliant cognitive filing system. Errands are categorized as structural outside tasks, like going to the post office, standing in line at the bank, or picking up a prescription at the pharmacy.
While groceries are strictly isolated to consumable goods you buy from a supermarket or bakery. Milk, fresh bread.
Exactly. And the reason this framework separates them isn't just to be pedantic about definitions. When you mentally categorize these tasks into distinct buckets, the administrative errand bucket versus the food procurement grocery bucket, you are creating mental scaffolding.
Oh, I see.
It makes the specific vocabulary for each domain much faster to retrieve on the fly because your brain knows exactly which file cabinet to open.
That makes a lot of sense. You're organizing the data before you even try to memorize it. And that organizational mindset extends to the physical house itself. We look at the state of the home, contrasting a tidy, organized space with a messy one.
Which inevitably leads to the action phrases for chores. I need to do the laundry. I need to vacuum. I'm going to cook pasta tonight.
Now, you mentioned earlier the idea of chores being like flashcards. Let's dig into that because chores are kind of the unsung heroes of language acquisition.
They really are.
Well, I look at chores like folding laundry or vacuuming as highly repetitive, usually pretty boring, but completely necessary actions. Because they don't require high-level thinking, your brain kind of glazes over.
But that glazed over state is incredibly useful. Physical movement, like pushing a vacuum or chopping vegetables, increases blood flow to the brain, which actually makes your neural pathways more receptive to new information.
Okay, but there is a very specific grammatical reason this framework focuses on phrases like, I need to, or I'm going to, for these chores.
Yes.
Right, instead of just saying, I vacuum, it focuses on the intent before the action. Why is that distinction so important?
Because you are seamlessly practicing forward-looking grammar. When you see a pile of dirty clothes and you internally narrate, I need to do the laundry, you are practicing necessity modals. When you look in the fridge and think, I'm going to cook pasta, you are practicing the future tense.
Oh, wow. So the chore itself becomes the trigger for complex grammar.
Exactly. You are stating an intention. You don't need to sit at a desk with a workbook to study future tense conjugations.
That sounds so much better than a workbook.
Right. Every single time you encounter a messy room, that visual cue triggers the grammatical structure in a real-world, highly relevant context. You are utilizing automatic habits, actions you do again and again without thinking to master grammar on autopilot.
That is incredibly efficient. You're leveraging the boring parts of your day for high-level language gains. Okay, so the errands are run, the laundry is running, the pasta is cooked, and hopefully you've avoided the specific danger highlighted in the text of accidentally cutting your finger while chopping those vegetables.
Yes, definitely avoid that.
Finally, we reach the evening, the unwind.
The evening sequence is entirely about cognitive offloading and decompression. We move into phrases like, I relax for a bit, which represents a complete shift away from the stress and demands of the day.
And the ultimate physical manifestation of that cognitive offloading. Taking off the rigid work jeans and putting on comfortable sweatpants, it is a universal human experience.
It really is the definitive signal to your brain that the active, high-alert portion of the day is over. This signals the parasympathetic nervous system to take over, which is crucial because memory consolidation happens during rest.
So the vocabulary transitions to bedtime habits, like what time do you go to bed?
And the soothing actions like I read a book in bed or taking a warm shower to regulate body temperature for better sleep, down to the final sequence of brushing and flossing teeth.
There's also a vital warning here in the source about a very modern bad habit, lying in the dark looking at your phone.
Yes, we know the blue light disrupts sleep, which in turn disrupts the very memory consolidation we're trying to achieve. Swapping the phone for a physical book is highlighted as a way to naturally induce sleepiness.
And then the cycle prepares to reset. I set my alarm for tomorrow. I turn off the light. I fall asleep.
And nestled right here at the end of the day is perhaps the most critical piece of advice in this entire learning strategy. The golden rule for anyone feeling overwhelmed by this process.
What's the rule?
Do not feel pressure to learn everything today.
That is so important. The recommendation is to choose just 1 or 2 new sentences to implement tomorrow. Just 1 or 2 small steps. But if someone is highly motivated and wants to reach fluency quickly, they might look at that and think it's too slow. Does learning just 2 sentences a day actually constitute real progress?
It absolutely does, and it requires a total paradigm shift in how we view learning. The source explicitly defines progress as moving forward and improving step by step. We are trained to think that progress requires massive, exhaustive effort, cramming 100 vocabulary words into our heads before an exam.
But cramming leads to rapid forgetting.
Exactly. Let's look at the math of deep acquisition.
Okay, break the math down for me.
If you try to memorize a list of 50 random phrases on a Sunday afternoon, by Thursday, you will have forgotten 45 of them because they have no anchor in your reality.
Makes sense.
But if you take just 2 sentences, say, I turn off my alarm and I wash my face with cold water, and you mentally narrate those phrases every single morning at the exact moment you perform the action, well, the repetition is guaranteed by your existing schedule.
Because you can't skip waking up. You can skip a study session, but you can't skip your life.
Exactly. The structure of your life guarantees the repetition. By tying those 2 sentences to daily habits, you create an unbreakable cycle of retention.
Wow.
Those 2 phrases become as automatic as the physical movements they are attached to. If you do that consistently over a month, that is 60 perfectly retained, naturally recalled phrases that you never had to sit down and study.
And over 6 months, that's nearly 400 phrases permanently etched into your long-term memory. That is the definition of massive, sustainable progress.
Right.
So what does this all mean for you, listening right now? It means we need to completely dismantle the idea that language learning is a luxury reserved for people with endless free time. You do not need extra hours in the day. You don't need a magical 2-hour window to appear on your calendar because your life is already providing the ultimate immersive language environment.
The laboratory is already built. You just have to start running the experiments.
By utilizing these quick morning exercises, narrating the alarm, feeling the cold water, you set a linguistic anchor before the day even begins. By using the brilliant hack of thinking in English, you transform the chaotic, stressful commute into a private, highly effective practice session.
And by attaching complex grammar to mundane evening chores, you take the small, guilt-free steps necessary to build an unbreakable web of vocabulary. Every single task, from the moment you hit snooze to the moment you turn off the light, is an opportunity.
You are fundamentally changing the relationship you have with your own routine. The mundane suddenly becomes highly meaningful. Which brings us to a final thought I want to leave you with, inspired by a specific challenge posed in this framework.
Okay, what's the challenge?
Well, we've talked a lot about the stressful parts of the day, the traffic, the chaotic mornings, the endless chores, but I want you to identify the one part of your daily routine that you truly, genuinely enjoy.
Oh, I like this.
Maybe it's that quiet, undisturbed first cup of coffee sitting by a window before the rest of the house wakes up. Maybe it's a slow evening walk around the neighborhood with your dog, or just taking 10 minutes to water your plants. Think about your answer to that. If you started by internally narrating your absolute favorite, most fiercely protected part of the day in English, how much faster would that vocabulary stick? Simply because it's tied directly to a feeling of genuine joy.